What even is eligibility anymore in college sports, and have we all lost our minds?
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? I'm Chris Gordy. On today's show, we got, tons of stuff. We're going to get to the latest news around at SEC camps. We've got Mizzou running back Ahmad with a set return date. We've got KJ Jackson named Arkansas starting quarterback. We had Keelon Russell named Alabama starting quarterback over the weekend. So a ton of stuff to dive into, but we got to start with the news that really started popping around Thursday, Friday, and then really came to a head on Sunday. And that is with these NFL players with NFL teams wanting to go back to college now. And most notably, Ole Miss tight end Dae'Quan Wright being waived on Sunday by the Cleveland Browns. And if clearing waivers, the former Rebel reportedly already has a deal in place to play at LSU this fall. That report came from ESPN insider Adam Schefter on Sunday. Now, Schefter's report came courtesy of Wright's agents, Drew Rosenhaus and Kyle Lincoln. Dae'Quan Wright is thought to be the first player ever who would play for an NFL team before going back to college to resume his collegiate career. Dae'Quan Wright is able to play a fifth season in college football after he and several other players were granted a temporary restraining order against the NCAA from an eligibility case ruled in Louisiana. Wright entered the transfer portal on Thursday, made his former head coach in Cleveland, Todd Monken, say, I don't know what's happening. Wright dressed up but did not play for the Browns on Saturday during Cleveland's preseason loss to the Bills. Following the game, Monken was asked about Wright and his current status. Wright did not appear in either of Cleveland's two preseason games, has not practiced in more than a week, but he did dress out for the Browns preseason game on Saturday. Tom Monken saying Dae'Quan Wright's been sidelined because of an injury, but the quote from Tom Monken was, "Isn't this bleep crazy? I don't even know what to say. As far as I know, he had a medical issue that wasn't allowing him to practice. I wondered why Lane Kiffin reached out a week ago. Now I know. I didn't call him back. Now I guess I should have." Dae'Quan Wright played 2 seasons at Virginia Tech and 2 seasons at Ole Miss, entered the 2026 NFL draft back earlier this year because he was out of eligibility. Now he went undrafted, was claimed by the Eagles, and then eventually made his way to Cleveland, and that's where he's been the last couple of weeks. But according to Schefter's report, not only would Wright be returning to the college game, but he'd be going back to the SEC to a different school. Played at Ole Miss at 24 and 25. He would be wanting to transfer to LSU. Now, again, this is interesting because the Browns are waiving him, and like I said, already reportedly has this agreement with LSU. So it's going to be interesting to see how the NFL handles situations like this. It's unprecedented waters. For Dae'Quan Wright, does he go back into the draft next year if he plays another college football season? Does he get an invite to the combine next year? There's a lot of weird territory we're going to get into. Former LSU offensive lineman Braden Fehoko took to social media. He said, "I'm an LSU guy, and I have absolutely no respect for this bleep. This is just straight up bleep may bleep. What are we doing?" Ross Dellinger of Yahoo said under normal circumstances, a player transferring from Ole Miss to LSU outside of the transfer portal window would be prohibited under the SEC's intra-conference transfer rule. However, circumstances are not normal. He's moving from the NFL to LSU. It's unclear if the SEC will take action. That's the funny part is his agent can make the case and say, Greg Sankey, he's not going from Ole Miss to LSU. He's going from the Cleveland Browns to LSU. He's not transferring from an SEC school to an SEC school. Now, On3 reportedly reached out to the SEC for comment. Again, they said this would seemingly break the league's intra-conference rules. Attorneys have said the TRO in Louisiana enjoins the conference intra-conference rules. So if you remember, and just kind of give you guys the background on this for those who haven't been keeping up, in June, the NCAA panel approved new eligibility rules giving D1 athletes 5 years to play 5 seasons of whatever their sport is starting next year. Then you had a large collection of players that just finished their 4th season in May saying, hey, wait a minute, we just finished our 4 years of college. Shouldn't we get that extra year that you just passed? Like, we just finished, but you just passed this. And the NCAA was like, no, that's for the future. You guys are done. Well, on July 31st, a federal court rules that all high school class of 2022 athletes who exhausted their 4th season of eligibility this spring are eligible for a 5th season for 26, 27. And you had certain players like Dae'Quan Wright who, said basically, I didn't necessarily go pro. Like I didn't say I'm going pro because he was just off to the NFL because he thought his eligibility was over. Well, this ruling then gave those players the window to say, hey, you can come back to school for that one more year. And so some of these guys, and I'm sure Dae'Quan Wright included, saying, I would have never left. I would have played my 5th year of college football. I wouldn't have declared for the draft again, went undrafted. And as one guy said, this is solely due to the NCAA discriminating against the freshman class of 2022 in these new eligibility rules, right? And others like him should have been granted the same opportunity to stay in college, not forced into the draft process. The Louisiana TRO overrules the NCAA stipulation because these kids were never given that option. But as Andy Staples points out, as it reads, it overrules the NCAA rule, but not necessarily the SEC rule. Where will Greg Sankey come down on this? And Chris Hummer at CBS points out LSU has been aggressive behind the scenes in their belief that they can skirt the SEC's intra-conference transfer rules. Wright's attorney saying, we believe the order should allow players to transfer anywhere. We've reached out to the SEC to discuss. Now, Dan Lanning made headlines a few days ago saying he's against, quote, NFL players coming back to college. His quote was, you're a professional now, you declare for the draft, so to let any of those players come back, fair or unfair to them, it's unfair to the sport, and I think it's unfair to the players that are on those teams. True. It's also unfair to the guys that this ruling just so happened to come a month after they finished school and go, oh, hey, everybody gets 5 years now, and those guys are going, wait a minute, we would love to have that 5th year. You didn't give us that option. And again, some people brought up, well, what about the class of 21 and 20? I think it's easy to just say, like the guys who just finished, right? The guys who finished school in May, and then a month later in June, they come out and go, oh, it's five years for 5 seasons now. Like, I get where these guys have an argument, but I also think it's a little different, too, when we talk about pro players. Like, I think I'm a little bit more forgiving to the guys who went through the draft process, went undrafted, and latched onto a team throughout this preseason, but many of them very likely get cut, right? We'll see if one or any of them end up on a practice squad or something like that. But like people calling Dae'Quan Wright an NFL player, he hasn't played in their preseason games and, went undrafted. To me, I'm more lenient to give him a little bit more leniency as opposed to a guy that maybe got drafted in the first round and then goes, oh, I want to leave my team even though I'm under contract. Like if you got waived and you didn't make the cut, you're not on an NFL team. But again, is it the whole stipulation of, well, it doesn't matter. You, quote unquote, went pro. And this is where the whole Charles Bediako thing comes back. And I think Charles Bediako's got a case to go, hey, I should be able to go back to Alabama. I still have some eligibility left. But it's just really fascinating. Again, we're going to see what happens here. We know that LSU defensive end Jack Pyburn, who's with the Tampa Bay Bucks, that he has done the same thing and said basically he'll go back and play for LSU if the Bucks cut him. But I believe he got a little bit more of a guaranteed, not a guaranteed contract, but like a signing bonus or something. So I think he has to stick it out through at least the 3rd preseason game, which will be this coming Friday. And then it's likely the Bucks are going to move on from him and waive him. If they waive him, can he go back to LSU? And again, I've seen some people saying, well, what about guys who've been in the league for 2 years, 3 years? Again, I don't want to say don't get ridiculous because all this seems pretty damn ridiculous, but I see where these guys are coming from. But the larger root of all this comes back to, why do we keep running the judges for all this stuff? The NCAA has rules. We have a set of rules, right? I've seen some Ole Miss people being very hypocritical, saying, oh, this is a joke. Well, look, the whole thing with Trinidad Chambliss. The NCAA ruled 4 times he was ineligible. They went and got a local judge to overrule it. Look, we're going to love watching Trinidad Chambliss play college football this year. I'm excited about it. I think a lot of folks are. But at the end of the day, you went to a judge to overrule one of the rules. We need to get back to enforcing the rules. We have rules in place. We're just not getting to enforce them the right way. And so thus we'll see what happens here. Again, if it were up to me, I would say Dae'Quan Wright. I'm sorry, dude. It's them's the breaks. You missed the NCAA ruling by a month. Your college career ended. You thought it ended. It did end. You went off to the NFL. Go try to latch on to another team's practice squad and go pursue your NFL career. But it sounds like, at least as of this recording, he's going to be allowed to go back to college. And again, will he go back to LSU or transfer to LSU? I think that's a whole nother discussion. Will Greg Sankey say, no, okay, fine, you want to go back to school, you can play, but you got to go to Ole Miss. You can't transfer. Or you can transfer outside of the SEC. going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. Now, there were a few other things that happened as far as eligibility goes. LSU did make an addition on, I think that was Friday, Junior Tui Alamaka from Notre Dame, giving LSU some experience and depth on the D-line. Over 4 seasons at Notre Dame, he played in 54 games, made a handful of starts, had 3.5 tackles for a loss and a sack last year. He's a guy who benefits from that ruling. He gets that 5th year, and now he can go play that extra year. Now, I didn't read his details, but it sounds like he didn't even pursue the NFL or had a chance with an NFL team or whatever. So that's why this one's a little bit more cut and dry. Now, LSU did lose one of their top edge rushers. It's redshirt sophomore Gabe Relaford in the spring with an ACL. So they're looking for depth. They're adding this guy from Notre Dame. They're still trying to get Jack Pyburn, who we'll see if the Tampa Bay Bucks cut him and they can add him. We'll see on that front. How about over South Carolina? Their former starter, DQ Smith, has reportedly entered the transfer portal. He has, according to CBS Sports, Smith figures to be a hot commodity in the portal. Should his eligibility be upheld, he was a 4-year SEC starter, racked up over 200 tackles, 12 pass breakups, 5 picks, and 3 forced fumbles in his time at South Carolina. But looks like he'll be moving on from the Gamecocks and Shane Beamer and company. And again, will the intra-conference rule apply to him? Can he not go to another SEC school? We'll keep track on that. South Carolina did add a 5th-year DB in an App State transfer, Ethan Johnson. He's another one of these guys, got an extra year of eligibility due to that temporary restraining order. He's from Huntersville, North Carolina, 5'11", 195 pounds, played in 47 games over 4 seasons. So at least lose DQ Smith, they add Ethan Johnson from App State. And then one more note here, Alex Afari, Kentucky linebacker, 5th-year hopeful. He is no longer practicing with the Wildcats after the U.S. Court of Appeals granted the NCAA a stay on that injunction. So he's got to go to a Kentucky judge to get an overruling to say he can play. Will Stein said on Saturday, we're going to monitor it and act accordingly. He was obviously practicing with us and getting prepped, but I think it's all still in limbo. Now, asked if Afari could continue pursuing another year of eligibility, Will Stein telling KSR that's all on him. There was a Twitter account, Hans the lawyer, who said Alex Afari, represented by other lawyers, he was requesting to be covered by our injunction, just received the motion by email. So it sounds like Afari is going to try to be part of that ruling in the state of Kentucky. Again, all this stuff is very complicated. I just come back to, can we get back to some common sense here? Have we all lost our minds? Like, you feel for some of the kids, but at the end of the day, you play your college career, that should be it. If you're ruled ineligible, doesn't matter what new rulings have come up, in my opinion. I just feel like let's just get back to sanity in college sports, particularly college football, and stop adding kids who need a 5th year, add a kid who had tonsillitis for a year and gets a medical red shirt, add a kid who was on the Bucks practice squad. It's just like, it's insanity, but this is where we are currently, college sports. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Running a business should not feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform, from sales and accounting to inventory and marketing. Everything works in one place. Odoo is one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working toward the same goal. That's true in sports, just like it is in business. I mentioned this before when Ole Miss promoted Pete Golding. They got everybody pulling in the same direction with that move. It was a coordinated effort across the entire organization, and that is what helped make them successful through that playoff run, and now moving forward in the Pete Golding era. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try them for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Hey, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Let's get to some of the other big news out there. We start over at Arkansas as KJ Jackson, officially named Arkansas's starting quarterback for the 2026 season on Sunday evening. The junior lefty from Alabama beat out Memphis transfer A.J. Hill to be Ryan Silverfield's signal caller for the upcoming season. KJ Jackson will take the first offensive snap under center when the Hogs open this season against North Alabama coming up on September 5th. Jackson and Hill battled throughout the offseason. Two quarterbacks rotated who worked with the first-team offense during the first 3 weeks of fall practice. But Jackson brings a little bit of SEC experience as he gets ready for his first starting role in college football. Played in 5 games, started the regular season finale against Missouri to finish out last season. Was 33 of 54 passing, 441 yards, 3 touchdowns, and also had 11 carries for 52 yards and 2 rushing scores. He's a former 4-star prospect from the class of 2024, chose the Hogs over North Carolina. And Ryan Silverfield said before fall camp started that he did not want the competition to extend into the regular season. He wanted his starter to use that game as preparation for the next 2 matchups. And, of course, at Utah and home against Georgia coming up in weeks 2 and 3. So it's going to be KJ Jackson, get his feet wet, get his confidence up, look good against North Alabama. And then it's on the road to Utah and home against Georgia after that 2 really big tests. But A.J. Hill transferred to Arkansas this past offseason. He will presumably be the backup to Jackson. And all goes well for Arkansas, they won't have to use him this year. But going to be fun to see that. How about over at Missouri? Ahmad Hardy not going to suit up for Mizzou to start the season. But there is some good news. The Tigers are reportedly eyeing a mid-September return for the star running back who is working his way back to full action after suffering that gunshot wound to the upper leg at a concert back in May. The question now is how ready will Hardy be? The all-SEC back still has not practiced and he'll have very little time to work his way back into form to get ready for the Tigers' SEC schedule. If Hardy can be somewhat of his production last year, I mean, he was the best running back in the SEC last year, 1,600 rushing yards, 16 touchdowns, 6.4 yards per carry, Heisman-level talent, and they would love to get him back sooner rather than later. But here was Eli Drinkwitz on that news.
Need to announce that Ahmad is working his rear end off. He's doing everything we can ask him to do, but just not going to be able to be ready for that first game. We're going to do the very best by him and his team, and our medical team just feel like right now it's in his best interest to hold off. So I want to make sure that I get that out there to the fans now, so there's no false hope there, and hopefully we can get that, he can keep working and try to get back as soon as possible. Really don't have a timetable on that. It's up to his body and his response, and I know he's doing everything he can.
So like Mizzou intimated, mid-September is still kind of the idea. And if you look at their schedule, they open with Arkansas Pine Bluff a week from this Thursday. Then they are on the road at Kansas on the following Friday night, September 11th. Then they come home for Troy, September 19th. And then they're at Mississippi State to start SEC play on September 26th. So you would think somewhere in that mode of, maybe not so much Kansas, but, maybe the Troy game is the game you can get him back in and get his feet under him and get him ready for that road game against Mississippi State. The good news for Mizzou is they got a really good backup in Jamal Roberts, who we talked with at SEC Media Days, who is a great runner in his own right. He's not Ahmad Hardy, but he's pretty damn good. And so if they have to showcase him as a starter for a couple of weeks, I think they'll be just fine. All right, some other news around the conference. How about over at South Carolina? We got some positive news from Jacarius Peak, the offensive tackle who has been sidelined this whole offseason, currently rehabbing from that knee injury he suffered in February, playing pickup basketball. But the Gamecocks' presumed left tackle not expected to be ready to go for week 1, but Matt Zennett's reporting Saturday there was optimism that he will be ready to go for South Carolina's SEC opener against Mississippi State. So will Dylan Stewart, their stud edge rusher, be ready to go? We'll see on that front, but at least for Jacarius Peak, it sounds like he'll be ready to go for that SEC opener against Mississippi State. How about over at Oklahoma? Brett Venables met with reporters on Friday, delivered some good news regarding their starting center, Jake Mikula, telling reporters they expect him to be back from injury sooner rather than later. According to George Stoya, Venables added that his injury is expected to be short-term for Oklahoma. In the meantime, reserve O-lineman Caleb Nita will be presumably taking those snaps at center to John Mateer. Last season, Mikula played over 700 snaps for Oklahoma at the center position and graded out very well. So we will see when he is back out there. How about Texas? Some interesting news as a junior linebacker no longer on the team. OrangeBloods.com reporting Tyanthony Smith no longer with the Longhorns. Smith was entering his junior season. They noted Smith missed last Saturday's scrimmage because of the flu, but returned to practice this past week. They reported a personal matter was the primary reason Texas parted ways with him. His bio was removed from Texas's roster. He was a former four-star recruit in class of 2024 rather. And in 2 seasons, playing 29 games for the Longhorns. Last season, he recorded 60 tackles, 5.5 tackles for a loss over 13 appearances, had a career-high 9 tackles in the Citrus Bowl win over Michigan. Steve Sarkisian did confirm the news afterward, and so they will play without one of those guys that was a big part of their defense last year. Ty Anthony Smith no longer with the team. Of course, if you missed it, we did a show on Saturday, but Alabama naming Keelon Russell their starting quarterback for this coming season. The decision was announced via Yay Alabama, their NIL entity. Their quarterback's coach, Brian Ellis, saying Keelon is going to be the starting quarterback here because he is a playmaker. He's the guy that we know when the ball's his hands, a lot of good bleep can happen. So Keelon Russell, starter for Alabama, going to be fun to see what he does. And I saw a quote said, I think what you saw from Michael Penix under the direction of those guys in terms of spreading it out and pushing the tempo, that is what you're going to see with Keelon. That was from a 24/7 Sports report where they spoke on what Russell being the starting quarterback means to Alabama. So Alabama fans very excited about that move. All right, when we return here on Locked On SEC, latest report out of Knoxville. We'll get you caught up with that coming your way in just a second. Locked On SEC is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a home run today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra innings. And the best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. I had Yordan Alvarez from the Astros on Sunday. He got intentionally walked 3 times. No bueno when we're trying to get the dingers out of him. But if you are ready to play your game today, join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who you think is hitting a home run. Play ball and swing for the fences over FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC, and we talked about the quarterback battles at Alabama and Arkansas being resolved and being announced. How about some that are still up in the air? How about over at Tennessee? I was reading a report that all signs say it is simply a matter of when they will announce freshman Faison Brandon will be the starter. For the second straight scrimmage over the weekend, freshman Faison Brandon was the more productive quarterback, leaving everyone guessing when Josh Heupel will announce his starter. Not who it'll be, but when he will make the announcement. Now, he's done it a bunch of different ways. In his first year as coach, Heupel announced Joe Milton as the starter on the Monday before their team opened up against Bowling Green on a Thursday night. Last year, he announced Joey Aguilar as the starter Sunday night heading into mock game week after Heupel talked to the quarterbacks and informed them on a Sunday night meeting. When Heupel was at UCF, he named Brandon Wimbush the starter a week before the start of the 2019 season, but he noted freshman Dylan Gabriel would play in the opener as well. So how's he going to do this? We'll wait to see. But again, sounds like Faison Brandon has outplayed George McIntyre, and they're going to go with the true freshman. Going to be really exciting to see what he does. One other note from Tennessee, according to report, safeties TJ Metcalf and DeJuan Lane both had interceptions in their scrimmage on Saturday, and that safety position continuing to thrive throughout fall ball under new DC Jim Knowles. So Tennessee fans, will be interesting if the defense is much better this year. That will certainly help this team moving forward. All right, how about over at Florida? John Summerall. Florida held their second scrimmage of fall camp on Saturday night in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. Now, media was not permitted to observe, but multiple people kind of leaked out reports on how it looked. And their quarterback battle continues on. Tramell Jones Jr. got the start. He had a 30-yard completion to Micah Mays on the opening series. Jaden Baugh finished off the drive with a 10-yard touchdown run. Now, Tramell Jones also threw a touchdown pass to wide receiver Bailey Stockton that went for 60-plus yards. It marked Stockton's second straight scrimmage with a touchdown. But then cornerback Cormani McClain, he had a pick off of Tramell Jones. He has now had interceptions in consecutive scrimmages after picking off Aaron Philo last week. So Tramell finished with a touchdown, a pick, and a lost fumble. Philo, he went with the second-team offense, and on his first possession, he connected with tight end Amir Jackson for a first down and set up a touchdown run by Duke Clark. He also had scored on a 15-yard quarterback keeper as well. So Philo, no touchdown passes, a rushing score, and no picks in the scrimmage. So it sounds like this thing is, both Jones and Philo have their pros and cons. Some have even said it's still a coin toss. Other people just assuming they're going to go with Aaron Philo, who followed Buster Faulkner over from Georgia Tech, has a little bit more experience than Terrell Jones. Now, John Summerall stated he does not have a strict timeline for naming a starting quarterback either. He even teased he might not even issue a formal announcement before they open the season against FAU coming up on September 5th. So we'll keep an eye on the Florida thing. I just think I'm more concerned about other things like Dallas Wilson didn't play in the second scrimmage. There's things like that I'm keeping an eye on. Like whoever the quarterback is going to figure itself out for the Florida Gators. A few other notes here. SEC Network announced week 1. They are heading to Atlanta for Auburn versus Baylor. Marty and McGee will follow from Baton Rouge ahead of LSU Clemson. SEC, or rather College GameDay will be taking place in Baton Rouge for that one. And then GameDay also announced their location for week 3. It will indeed be in Oxford for LSU Ole Miss. So week 1, College GameDay in Baton Rouge for LSU Clemson. Week 2 in Austin for Texas Ohio State. Week 3 in Oxford for LSU Ole Miss. So 3 straight weeks, 3 straight SEC campuses. And sorry, Big Ten, you don't get College GameDay. SEC's got the bigger games the first couple of weeks. So good luck to you. Quick basketball nugget. Former Mizzou power forward Mark Mitchell reportedly committed to Kentucky basketball over the weekend. He recently entered the portal after being granted that temporary injunction. So he's another one like the football guys. Basketball front now. We're going to see some of these guys. All right. Thank you guys for tuning into today's Locked On SEC. Make sure you subscribe and follow so you get all the latest episodes. We're counting down the days to get you guys ready for the start of yet another college football season. Follow me on social media. I'm at Chris Gordy. Follow the show at Locked On SEC. And on video, we send you the first ever 24/7 YouTube channel on college sports. And on audio, check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin for your second listen.